Oh shit, game audio. Fuck. It's HP Argues on Forums Craft. Back with another video inspired by forum arguments, this time on the Lucid Tactics forum. What discussion spawned this particular video, and why do these Hochmeisters have Fire Shield? Well, talking about the Lucid's tournament finals, in which an Ulm took a bless that looked like this, which is not what these guys have, by the way. And it sparks some discussion. There's a lot going on here. You might be tempted to call this total trash. It's kind of agreed that this represented some sort of a failed turbo expander build, and of course there's more going on there. You can see the death and blood for vampires or whatever, but that's not that's not why I find it interesting. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what the actual build was and talk about the tournament build. Instead, I'm going to talk about turbo expanders because it's more interesting to me and I know it better, and because I disagreed with a lot of what people had to say about the idea of turbo expanders. What exactly do I mean by a turbo expansion here? Well, what I mean by turbo expansion is a build that very quickly takes its cap circle within, say, the first 5 turns or so, or less than that usually, and then after it takes its cap circle, it very quickly accelerates to 2 to 3 expansion parties out of the cap per turn. That may not result in a province per party every time, because against some of the more difficult provinces, you may have to consolidate multiple expo parties into one for them to take some of the more difficult ones. But you should get 2 or 3 expo parties against the easy provinces from your cap every turn with the turbo expander build. So what does a turbo expander build look like, and how does it work? Well, it usually looks something like this, which is an ugly mess with all of your scales, except usually production and maybe order, dumped straight to the garbage can. Magic might be 3 if you're relying on a research rush, but usually they don't. So this is what we were expanding with last time. It's an Allfather, awake, with Stygian Flesh for the prod on the Knights, Fate Weaving, and Fire Shield and Windwalker, and a million disadvantages in order to afford all that. Very importantly, 6 Dom, which gets us 3 Meisters and 3 Black Knights per turn. We're cheating on our rec points, so we don't need the order so much, because we're getting Hochmeisters out. And this will go in and kill indies. The theory behind this particular Bless configuration, by the way, the Fate Weaving Fire Shield in Vuln 10, or Stygian skin, is that Stygian, as you know, gives fear to your Pretender God and more protection against mundane attacks, so that's 27 prot v indies. Fate Weaving will make people hit them, which they're going to be taking a lot more hits than they're going to be putting out, makes hits against them trigger effects that will lower the indie stats on defense and damage rolls. Now, what that means, if they're lowered stats on if they get less dice on their DRN versus damage rolls, that makes Fire Shield stronger, and they will get bug zapped. So how these work can be kind of funny, because you have to, your early build order and taking provinces can be a little messy. So on our second turn, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to alchemize into Astral, forge for our god some pants while he sits here and researches, and simply take a little addition to our starting army out, get pinged on Discord, begin to make some dudes in our capital. So these early fights can be a little chaotic, a little messy. I like the 2 pikemen, got some chutzpah coming in there at the commanders. Oh god, oh they're running! They're running faster. See, no retreats. Perfect. No notes. But after that, it should get a little bit easier. That seems like a good province for our god to take. He needs air shield. This is crossbow territory. And depending on how confident we are in our starting army, we may want to just keep them together with our new knights, and while we attempt to make as many knights as we can with our cap resources. That's funny. There's a misfortune 3 for you. So what happens, and those poor dogs aren't sacred, unfortunately, is our god will go in and slay the hell out of this province. Yeah, fucking easy clap, right? Whereas our troops will continue struggle bussing forward as we slowly, this is turn 4 now, get more and more expo parties going. You sail, so you look at this. Look at this. Holy shit. Group up multiple expo parties on the heavy cav. What we are trying to do is ensure that all our guys hit at the same time and there are no gaps in the line. Bam. Bam. Ew. That's okay. We lost one Hockmeister there. That means we could just, because we have Windwalker, we could just pick this shit up on the rebound. This is going to probably split into 2 parties, depending on what the indies look like. Hopefully this isn't crippled. Yeah, it's not. We're good. Now we finally have enough resources to start putting out our full complement, or close to our full complement, with some extras, by the way. And though I have probably cut the scripting with a little bit of effort, we are starting to turbo expand. It is turn 6, and we just had 4 expos, and we are producing essentially 3 parties a turn. It looks like 2.5. The swamp, holy fuck. Okay, this is a real problem. But this kind of thing we would, you know, we could brute force it, but whatever. So you could get a bad province that you could maybe brute force. It's whatever. It's fine. But the point is, you see how it works. And you see, oh look, our gold in our treasury is really fucking high, despite the fact that we have scales for shit, and we are spending all our money on fucking Hockmeisters and Black Templars, because we have expanded so goddamn fast. We're bringing in all of the money, and this is where the turbo expander build is starts to show how good of a tempo build it is, because the point isn't necessarily, oh, we have all the provinces, therefore we get to keep all these provinces. There's a lot of discussion about how you're going to lose provinces. People are going to not want you to turbo expanding into them. You're going to run up on people's borders, etc. But because we have so many provinces on turn 6, we have enough extra money to build a castle already. Granted, we weren't ready with a commander, and we didn't really have good places to build one either. I guess I could have bought one here. But we are going to start being able to put up our infrastructure very, very early. And that is one of the key points. That is really the key point of a turbo expander build. What sort of nations are good prospects for a turbo expander build? Why is LA Ulm so good at it? Basically, generally what you want to see is you want to see someone like this, a strong commander who is command point cheap for your nation. This guy's only 1 rec point, and they have a citadel, so they get 3 of them. That's automatically very good. Who can, with a small number of your sacreds or other troops, expand. There might be other ways to do turbo expansion, but this is the method I know. So, late age Ulm is a very good prospect. for turbo expansion. They're like the prototype, you might say. Jesus, I can't talk. Middle Age Marignon, since they also have a Citadel start. I'm pretty sure they have a Citadel start. I hope they have a Citadel start. Whatever, they can architect up. Pretty sure they have a Citadel start. They get Knights of the Chalice and Paladins, which are another. Oh look, hey, I bless my guys, and then I bring along another Knight of the Chalice, and then if we have a big enough bless, we just take the fucking province. And these guys can leverage it even more to their bless bonus, their recruit anywhere nature of their dudes, and even the fact they have flagellants. Even late age man can sort of, at least, do this. They are not the strongest prospect I've found, and Dom 9 definitely hurts because you have to put a lot of stuff on these guys to make them turbo expand. So your points are squeezed, and you need 9 Dominion to get that third Expo party. But the Lord Warden and with his Warden buddies are able to do this to a certain point, up to a point, of course. And to reiterate some of the points of those one command point leaders is that, first of all, it allows you to split these into separate stacks. Generally, you're going for one square of guys to get your maximum density in, and he is able to lead separate stacks while also cheating your recruit point requirements, because you're using your commander points for an additional combat guy instead of your recruitment points. I'm not really demonstrating this. But middle-aged man is also capable of this. Not because they actually have those advantages from the outset. They only have 2 command points, and this man does not bless himself, but they have 200 gold temples and a out-of-fort monk. So with some of that gold you save early, with some of the things your god takes, you can have your monk or your prophet slap down the temple, start making more monks. The monks will want to bless and then run away. You don't want to keep them in the square. They have no pants on, so they die. But that'll enable you to create a Lord Warden with 2 Wardens of Avalon. Just go 6 Dom out of your capital every turn with Windwalker, and expand that way. I have tested that. I'm not sure I have a game demonstrating it, though. One thing that I am sure you have picked up on, as did the people I argue with in the forums and discuss things with in the forums, is that this build is not actually a rush build. It is no good against enemy sacreds. Not only because they typically will have resists a lot of the time for our fire shield, they'll have high MR for our fate weaving, they will have magic weapons go through the Stygian skin. These guys will not go in, despite all the investment we have in them, these guys will not go in and kill sacreds. They kill arbitrarily large numbers of chaff, they expand like crazy, but they are not for murking enemy sacreds. So, you might think, like, this is, what is the use of this build? You turbo expand, and you put up your infrastructure early, and then what? Well, that's because this is a tempo build, and how it works, like I said, was when you put up your infrastructure early, that means you are way more ready for that first war than your opponent is, even if he may have superior sacred tools. Not that these things totally lose relevance, because instead of your mainline troops that are supposed to fight enemy sacreds, they eventually become PD raiders, because the grouping of 2 can take down an arbitrarily large number of PD. Even 1 can, and you can bring them back for gear for army thugging or yet more raiding. So they do continue to serve a role, but the point of the build is that once you take this land early, you then can put up your infrastructure early, And therefore, timing pushes by the enemy is weaker, and timing pushes by you are very strong. It's been pointed out by many people that when you do have a turbo expander build, and you do take 1,000,000 provinces by turn 8 or 9, and you are in people's cap circles, then they will tend to want to attack you because you have a large overextended empire with sacreds that are not that good at fighting enemy sacreds. In this build, eventually we would have to probably switch off of our sacreds, even with their bless, and switch over to some ghoul guardians, just to take down the enemy sacreds. But what I want to impress on you is that the timing situation, while attacking from a single cap and a poor expansion into an overextended cap during their infrastructure phase, is a strong timing. It is a much weaker timing than having a large expansion, putting up your infrastructure early, and then attacking a normal expansion when they are putting up their infrastructure and you already have infrastructure. That is a stronger timing. And with this particular build, not the tournament build granted, but this particular build, you have a lot of tools to deal with the enemy armies if they decide to attack you. First of all, even if you're in their cap circle turn 8, they're probably not attacking you turn 8. They probably want to finish out their expo in other directions. Granted, if you're in someone's cap circle, you should offer to give the province back, just through diplomatic. Sometimes I've offered to sell them back, and people tend to take that wrong. But HP Diplocraft. But you will have, by this point, this is lazy, so I don't. But you will have infrastructure going up. Infrastructure up by the time anyone really attacks you. You will have a god with a bunch of extra abilities, and in this case, Windwalker to get him all over the map. I chose Windwalker, by the way, so that these guys can jump forward multiple provinces. Their base map move is cut down pretty heavily by their armor penalty. So they do need Windwalker. And I think usually with Turbo Expo, you want Windwalkers so you can jump over provinces with units you've made in your cap. So at this point, we have all our sacreds. We have whatever infra we've put up. We're floating a ton of gold for PD dumps. And we are able to switch over into regular troops and even mages by this point in the game. And while our advantages will decay later in the game, having a large early expansion, lots of infra, and the fact that we still get our bless, like we can still do things with these guys, and even I'm not gonna demo this. I'm lazy, but since we have our black priests with forge bonuses, even just putting a little bit of armor on them will turn them into little mini thugs that are capable of province raiding, and we can get them out of any of our forts. So we're not totally. It's not no advantages later in the game, and our god can certainly cast big, beautiful magics as the game goes on, and give us access to different paths that we. Another point on the point of your neighbors attacking you if you expand too big is that this only applies in certain circumstances. If you are surrounded by mediocre expanders and you're a turbo expander, you will be attacked. But if one of those mediocre expanders is surrounded by two good expanders and a turbo expander, well, they're pretty screwed. They may not necessarily go in the turbo expander's direction. They may choose one of the other strong expanders to go in the direction of. And the other point to that effect is that just because you have turbo expanded doesn't mean that they will all your neighbors will necessarily decide to go into you. If someone with mediocre expansion does get screwed by your expansion, then other neighbors may decide to go into them. So treating Turbo expansion as a year one coalition is more of a metagame determination than anything else, and it might be the case in certain metas, but it certainly is not universal enough to invalidate the build. In addition to the defensive mechanisms mentioned earlier that the Turbo Expander build has access to. Let's talk about some of the true disadvantages of the Turbo Expander build. We have dumped, the first disadvantage is we have dumped all of our scales. Now that is, yes, we had to. This is a variant of Hell Blessing, I admit. So we will not have good scales going forward. We may not care, but LA Ulm does care because it is reliant on Ghoul Guardians a lot of the time. And we will eventually cut these guys for Ghoul Guardians, I think I said. So when we have, on this particular build, we have Chaos, we are losing rec points, we are also Death, so our rec points are going to continue to dwindle. So even if we cut out all of our Knight recruitment, get our resources, we are rec limited very hard on the Ghoul Guardians, and that's a disadvantage on LA Ulm, because usually these are your anti-sacred elite tool. They're very nasty, they work under Foul Vapors, they've got weaknesses, but it's a very good unit. And so that 47 rec point is really hurts us going forward. Also, as Ulm, we have our foreign rec mage, the illuminated one, which is a big national advantage. But when he's for research, because we took Drain 3, he will not become a national advantage until we get Alt 4 and can deploy him as a battle mage. So we will not get that research advantage of our nation with this build. So we are definitely, this isn't free, we're definitely cutting ourselves off of advantages. So that's definitely the true disadvantages of the build. I think the diplomatic disadvantages and you're just gonna get coalition to die, your guys don't fight the other guys, I think those are fake disadvantages of the build. Basically, it doesn't function like that. The true disadvantage is that you are going to have to go into your blood scaling instead of relying on your scales to scale you. You are losing out on a major national feature until a certain point in the game. Basically, you must be this tall to enter. You are going to, like these guys, look at that, fucking 4 research. And you are losing out on another national feature, which is basically unrecoverable. You're also, because you have competing cap onlys, you also have to choose between the things that get your huge bless and the things that you actually want killing enemy elites. So it's not a free build. It's not this all this misery does mean something. It just doesn't mean that everybody wants to be my enemy. That joke, I should probably be thrown in jail. Yeah, look, it's a configuration. It's closer to the tournament configuration. But I added Stygian, because of course I did. Anyway, that is the theory and methods and practice behind Turbo Expander builds, and why some of the common criticisms might be wrong, although I would not say they are busted or for everyone or an everyday food. So there, God, what a weak conclusion. Alright, hopefully I'm able to put something reasonable out of all this footage I've cobbled together. Whatever, see you later.